Hey, I'm Sila Mackenzie, and in this video I'm going to teach you how to do subtractive EQing in Ableton Live. Subtractive EQing is the process of lowering frequency bands in your EQ as opposed to boosting them. If you're anything like me, your instinct is probably to find the part of the sound that you like and to bring it up to place more emphasis on it. And that makes sense. I mean, it's a natural instinct. It kind of makes sense that you listen for the parts that you like, bring them up. The issue that this creates, unfortunately, is that when you get to mastering your music, all of the times that you boost on all of your different instruments and your different sounds, they're going to stack up together in those spots. So subtractive EQing is kind of like getting ahead of the curve on that by removing audio that you don't like in your EQ as a means of making the part of the EQ that you do like stand out. So it's kind of like achieving the same thing, but by taking the removal route as opposed to the addition route, or subtractive as opposed to additive, you end up creating headroom for yourself everywhere. So I've got this beat here. It's just a 16-bar loop right now. The mix isn't finalized. I haven't touched the mastering or anything like that, but I've followed one main EQing technique to get it to sound the way it does. So let's listen to how it sounds mixed, and then we'll listen to the unmixed version and talk about the steps I followed to get there. All right, now that we've checked out the mixed version, let's take a listen to the unmixed version. Okay, so safe to say that's pretty flat. Let's take a look at what subtractive EQing can do to bring something alive from being kind of flat. So I'm going to start here with this high guitar, and I'm going to drop an EQ8 on it. Now I've got my default EQ8 set up different than Ableton has it. The main difference is here that I have all my bands turned on. The high pass filter here at the end with 7 regular individual band passes, all with a Q of about 5. And I kind of give or take a bit more. And if you didn't know, you can hit this little arrow here to send your EQ up into this top section. And it actually allows you to get a little bit more into the nitty gritty in between bands when you're working on your EQ. So I'm going to drop a compressor on here. My compressor is different than the default one as well. So I've got my attack up really fast, my release up really fast. I've got my mode set to RMS. My ratio is 4, and I'm actually just going to drag my threshold down until I hit the louder parts of my audio file. We can revisit this compressor after, but the main thing I'm trying to do is to get the peaks, squash them just a bit, and then boost it on the output. Now I can hear it a little bit better. So before we start editing our EQ, you'll want to make sure that you have monitoring mode on, and that's right here, this little pair of headphones. What this is going to do for you is it's going to show you what you're changing in your EQ in isolation. So you're only going to hear what's being added or removed. And when working with subtractive EQ, you really want to listen for the things you don't like in your audio as opposed to the things you do like. So what I'm really looking for is like a howling or a whistling, some kind of resonance in the audio. Those are the things that are going to make louder peaks in the audio file, in the waveform, and it's going to actually muddy the rest of it. So let's look for some. Yeah, right there is kind of annoying. In the process of looking for something annoying, if I have to boost it a lot for it to become annoying, then that means I only have to dip it a little bit. So something like this. But if it's annoying at a volume like this, maybe 6 decibels up, then I'm actually going to do a bigger cut. So let's see how high I can boost this gain before it starts to get annoying. Yeah, pretty high. So let's give it a little tiny cut here, and we'll start looking for some more. See, that one was pretty annoying, even here. So I'm actually going to give it a little bit bigger of a cut, and I might narrow the Q just a little bit as well. All right. One there as well. Let's roll off the low end while we're at it. And there might be one or two more. So let's take a look around. Maybe one more. I'll give that a little dip and make the Q a bit more narrow. I'm going to go back to my compressor, make sure that I'm still hitting that right spot. And let's check the output gain. All right, so let's group these effects together, and I'm actually going to copy this and start pasting it onto my other tracks. This is going to serve as a really good starting point because I know I'm going to want to EQ and compress everything anyway, but I'm always going to have to recalibrate it for each individual track. Now, in this case, this is also a guitar, but it's a low guitar. So if we listen to this here, let me turn this off. We can hear it's more of a low register guitar being played on the lower strings. So I'm going to turn this back on here. One way you can test how good your previous EQ is going to be against the new track that you're mixing is by right-clicking on this top bar here and clicking Reset All Gains. So this is going to put all the gains back to 0, but it's going to leave the bands right where they are. Now this is super useful because now I can actually just grab any of these bands and boost them and see, is this still annoying on this particular instrument? Kind of an annoying frequency there. I'm hearing more that the low end needs to be branched out too. And then there's maybe, well, here, let's. There's one there. Because I want some body, but there's like one low resonant sound. So let's check these other frequencies. I feel like there's something there. Oh, maybe it's a little bit lower than it was before, but definitely a narrower Q. All right, I'm already starting to like how that sounds a lot more. As you might have noticed, between this track and the last track, I'm only ever pulling frequencies down. I'm never adding frequencies to, but the sounds are still coming to life in the way that I want them to. The frequencies were pretty different on this one, and that makes sense because we were looking at the low register of the guitar. Let's check this last band here since we have it available to see if there's something else that is annoying that we might be missing. I'm pretty okay with that. One thing to keep in mind with subtractive EQing is that every time you remove a frequency from your EQ, you're going to hear new things that are annoying. So you might actually have to sweep past the same spot 2 or 3 times to hear it. You might not hear it on the first pass. You remove one annoying frequency, then the second pass you might still not hear something. You remove another one, and then on the third pass you actually hear something that sticks out. That's because the more you're removing the muddy frequencies, the more some of the other ones that were even more masked are going to show themselves, and that's your cue to take them out. So let's hear these 2 guitars now together. Oh, and before I do that, actually, let's go back to the low guitar and make sure our compressor is doing its job. I don't know if it's just a me thing, but I do like to have, you know, my last compressor on my chain kind of hovering around here, so that way I know how much headroom I have in my signal chain compared to when I'm pushing the volumes here up or down. Okay, so now that those 2 guitars sound good, let's check whether or not this third guitar is more of a high or a low type guitar, and then we can steal the plugin from the respective channel that best suits it. Okay, that's going to be the high guitar. So we'll grab our high guitar group. We're going to drop it on this guitar track. And right away, I kind of like the way that sounds. I think it's important to not be lazy though, so I am going to reset all gains just to verify if this is the best combination of frequencies that need to be removed from this to make it sound like itself, to let it shine. This is a super narrow band, so I'm actually going to open this up a bit. Yeah, I knew there was something around there. It's kind of annoying. Maybe I'll tighten this back up a bit. One right there. Again, I'm listening for howling, right? Oh, yikes. That one's still relevant. I hear there's a high one somewhere. Yeah, that one's kind of annoying. That's like a bell almost. It's pretty quiet here, but I like that, and I think might turn this spot down just a little bit. And then we'll do that, and let's hear these together. That's pretty cool. Let's grab our low guitar preset and slap it on this bass here. Now this is going to need a big change. I'm definitely going to turn off this high pass. I'm going to reset all these gains. Let's check our level with this compressor. Hold up. Oh, I accidentally dragged this bass around. Hold on. So there's a few other plugins I use on my bass. I definitely want to have a sidechain compressor from my kick. I've got an RC20 retro color for tone, and I've also got an auto tune on my bass because I play a fretless bass, and if you've ever recorded a fretless bass, it's pretty hard. I mean, for myself, I'm not a pro fretless bass player, so it's a little bit hard for me to get a perfect take, and I find having the auto tune helps me get the performance that I want over, you know, the focus it requires for me to get an absolutely pitch perfect tone on my fretless. I'm going to snag those as well and just turn them on before I even touch these. Cool. So my compressor's set. All of these other plugins are good. So let's go back to our EQ. I'm going to switch out this high pass for a low pass actually, and Now I really like this bass tone, and it has a lot of good mid and high energy in it, so I'm going to try and save some of that as much as possible, really. Again, looking for annoying stuff. Let's do a little pass. All right, I think we're cool. All right, and let's look for a low end one. I might actually turn let's see, something that's not being used here, turn it back into this here, into a high pass. And I am going to roll off some of the low end. Not much, but just a bit. I really like my bass tone, so I didn't really do a ton to it here, and I didn't want to damage it too much, but I did roll off some of the, really sub low and some of the more high end stuff while still preserving that tone that I like from this bass. Let's go take a look at our drums actually. Here's our soloed unmixed drums. Instead of showing you every single time I'm adjusting this, how about I just open up what I did here for this. So following the same logic, I basically just rolled off the high end on my kick, and I've got a pretty fast compressor here. My kick, pretty easy setup. If I go to my snare here, let's turn these back on. Same deal, did some little dips in the EQ. Again, I'm listening for the annoying frequencies. Like if I boost this one up here, you can hear the resonance of it, and it just makes it a little bit smoother overall. Again, the concept is to listen for annoying frequencies and pull them down, and that's exactly what I've done here for all of these sounds. These add drums, it's actually just 2 samples, and I added the same EQ on it because it's really just 2 samples that sound pretty similar. Sorry, here. If I go to this synth here and turn on my EQ and compressor for that, I've got a lot more bands here, but again, if I boost any of them, you're going to find they're kind of annoying. And by annoying, I mean they're whistling, they're howling. Oh, I hate it. Yuck. You get the idea. And if I go to this shaker here, this is the last sound in this song. Same thing, roll off a lot of low end, pulling everything down. All right, so one last time, let's listen to this beat here and hear how it sounds now that we've done some subtractive EQing and compression. All right, so some key takeaways for today are that subtractive EQ gives you headroom in your mastering chain. It's gonna make your mix cleaner in general, and really you're gonna get the same results that you would have gotten if you boosted the stuff you liked anyway. When you're configuring your subtractive EQ, remember to be in monitoring mode, and while sweeping, you're listening for howling, resonant, annoying frequencies, things that make you uncomfortable, that really suck to listen to. Those are the things you want to pull out of your audio. If you enjoyed watching this video and found it useful, consider giving it a like and subscribing to my channel for more tips on how to mix and master in Ableton Live.